recording, but I'm going to start it now because we have learning that we are sharing. But go ahead, finish your sentence, love.
Anyway, I was just thinking like, by putting myself out there and doing something new and scary, and that could be a whole gamut of things for anybody, you know, there's such a learning process that goes on, even if you don't accomplish the goal or get the big shiny trophy that you were hoping for in the end, you know, and there was just a huge learning process that went on for me that I'm so glad that I did it. And the people you met too.
Exactly. It keeps us focused on the purpose of doing things. And I would submit that most of the time it's not the win. And it's a lot of times not the thing we think that we're going in for. He leads me to do X. And then when I get into it, I'm realizing he wants me to get Y, but I wouldn't have gotten Y because I wouldn't have been drawn with the X. Does that make sense? So yes. I think it is beautiful. We were just talking to artists about her beautiful networking event tonight that she's got, which is fantastic. And Ashley, you need to text me what I need to wear because I've been like stressing about, do I wear suit pants? Do I wear a dress? Do I wear like jeans?
Whatever you want, whatever you want. It's just, I think it's casual. I'm sure tons of people will wear jeans, but I'll probably wear something a little bit nicer.
Well, you're dressing nicer though, right? Because you're presenting.
Yes. I'll be dressing nicer for sure. But
all right. Are you wearing pants or a dress?
Pants.
Okay, just wondered.
I'm more of a pants girl. Anytime I can wear pants, I'm wearing pants.
I'm so the opposite. I'm like, anytime I can do a dress, I'm totally doing a dress. I love dresses. All right, anyway, this is fantastic. I love it. And this is right now top of mind of the things that she's doing. I love seeing the photos of Wendy's night, her networking night. And I just love that somebody in the DTLC did a networking night and then Ashley looked at it and said, I want to try that, and how beautiful both of them are turning out. Artists, are you coming tonight?
Yes, I am. I'm planning on coming tonight, even though I've got a little bit of a cold. I'm hoping I can speak for my 2 minutes pretty clear. So, but I am planning on it and I'm totally looking forward to it. Ashley, thank you so much for arranging it.
So awesome. And Heidi's going to be there. So you'll have lots of DTLC support and we'll be cheering you on because you're going to do fantastic. This is so super and super fast. I just wanted to share. Amanda had texted me. I hope I don't embarrass her. But anyway, out of the blue, she kind of texted me. You know, I'd asked just what are some things that, you know, how has DTLC blessed your life or benefited you? What are some of the abundant things that you've seen? And she texted 2 pages. And she's like, I just got to share this with you. And it inspired me. I'm going to do that today because the Lord has blessed me so much. And before conference, I've been thinking a lot about gratitude and about this last year and what he's done and how he's worked with all of us. And anyway, it was just a beautiful thing. I had to print it off. It was just so lovely to read all the things. So nice job, everybody. You're amazing. Let's go ahead and we have prayer. And I know I've got several things I want to share with you today, but I want to hear any questions that you might have that are burning and you're like, I need help with this or whatever. So I'd love to start with the questions because I want to make sure that you get what you need first. And then I can always just follow up with this if need be later. Anybody have any questions? On your one sheet, you know, we just have a couple weeks left and we're just kind of tying up these loose ends of anything that's kind of a potpourri of that you need help to get done. Artists.
Just on the one sheets, I'm noticing like when I'm looking at templates and everything, and they're pretty basic, like just your information, a little bit about you, what you speak about, and then someone, you know, maybe saying a quote about you. And that's it. That's all it is, really. It's super brief.
Very brief. And just a heads up, I mean, you'll notice a lot of them are packed. I don't know if you noticed that same thing when I was researching a bunch of them. They're just packed with information. And I would encourage, like we said before, lots of white space. Because what happens if they're looking at 35 one sheets, right? Your eyes get so tired. You're a human being. You're just going to be like, I can't even handle this. So it is really important to keep a lot of white space. And here's one tip. I was just talking with Cheryl the other day, and she said it's also good to do a one sheet that's just one keynote. And I thought that was a great idea. She said, just do one speaker one sheet for your one key, like for us, it would be the Keystone keynote. But she said just one keynote so that you have the speaking topic, then maybe underneath you have your takeaways, and then you just have 1 or 2 testimonials, and then you have a nice picture of you and your contact information, but lots of white space, and they can clearly get the information that they want, which is, what are you speaking about? What are the takeaways? Are you credible? And can I see where you're speaking? So make sure on that one sheet you have a link or something that says to watch my speaking reel or to watch my speaking for a clip of my speaking, my keynote speaking, go to my website or go to my landing page or email me if you don't have any of those, which by now you should have some kind of a landing page or something that people can contact you and find you. So that's a really important thing. Make sure you hit those markers and lots of white space. And another thing that I noticed when I was looking through the keynotes, the one sheets, is I loved the ones that had a pop color. So have you noticed that when you look at one sheets, there's a lot of white space, but then like this one lady had a pink band in the middle, and she had the top third was her white space and then her picture and then her contact information, and right underneath was her tagline. So people, it was branding, financial branding, something analyst. So she needs to have a better tag, a definer of what she is, right? So if you're a life coach, or if you're a gardening specialist or whatever, right? Whatever that specific niche that you fill, put that niche on the other side of your picture. So it's nice, bold, easy to read, and they can see it at a glance. And then in that middle section, in the pink band, if I don't want to take the time to pull it up, unless you want me to pull it up, I can actually put a link to it in the WhatsApp if you guys want to see that, or I can do it right now, but I just don't want to take the time to like go through all the whatever. But in the pink band, the first line that she said on the top of the pink band was, people do business with people they know. So you could tell that was her driver, which is you need relationships to be able to do the thing you're going to do in business. And then she went on to kind of explain it. I did not like that she did a paragraph underneath that because I just totally lost interest. But if you want to do something like that, I would encourage you, that's where you do your speaking topic, like your title, and then you would do your bulleted takeaways. Because bullets, people will read bullets, right? They want to just see it. And then at the bottom of those bullets, you could put, for a speaking clip, go to blah, because they're going to read this stuff and go, wow, we want those takeaways. I wonder if she's any good. And then boom, for my speaking set clip or reel, go here. Then they can click right on it. And especially if you're sending them a PDF, they can have the link that's the hyperlink that's active on there, so they can just click on it right there. So those are just a couple of thoughts. But again, make it lots of white space. And again, consider using a branded pop color. I'm going to do my one sheet different now. I'm going to put an orange band in the middle. I really, really liked that. It just drew your eye right to it. And it wasn't so busy. So many of them were just so busy and all over the place. And it was completely overwhelming. So you don't need to prove things. You just need to state your credibility. And that's like in a sentence or two. You don't need to list all the amazing things. You can put that bio in the email that you're sending to say, hey, you want to request me to speak. Any other questions? Did that help? So I love that point. Keep it simple, keep it clean, keep it classy, and keep it informative of those key things that they want to know. Anything else? I would love for you to be preparing your final keynote. Like by the time we're done in 2 weeks, that keynote should be done, finessed, all the things. So last week I said, look through that whole process. Imagine yourself reaching out to someone, sending your one sheet, how you would respond, then you actually getting requested. What information would you need to have? And then how would you prepare? And then you know how to do your keynote in the slides, and it leads them to something, to your opt-in or to whatever. And then the follow-up after, you have an email template that you're like, and if you need one, I'm happy to post one. You would just want to tailor it in your own way. But the follow-up is very simple. You're just saying, it was a beautiful experience at this conference. Thank you so much. I love the response of the people. And I would look forward to working with you again. Love to keep in touch, and I'll check back with you in a few months, in about 6 months, and just see if you have any other conferences that I can help you with, or blah, blah, blah. But I'm happy to post a template if you'd like a template. It's very personal. You want to make sure you're just letting them know, thank you so much, and I'm available. I have other topics that I can share, so I'd be happy to speak again. So would you like me to post something like that? A template? Okay. Let me write that down. Awesome. Any other questions? So one sheets, you should have your one sheet. You should have, and I'll post that too. There's just that little checklist. So you should have your one sheet. You should have your CRM by now, the way that you're going to track your speaking gigs and the process of it. So you can check off, I sent that. You should have your bio and your headshot that you can include also in that email. So your intro email, your follow-up email, and then your keynote and your slides and your opt-in. So those are really, really key pieces, and make sure that it's just a smooth flow. And we saw that for Wendy, that she just had all of those pieces in place. So it was a nice pipeline. Okay, then I'm just going to go right to, if there's any questions, you just let me know. I'm just going to go right to fee schedule because that was something that came up. So before I show you the numbers, I wanted to see your faces. Sometimes I just get behind the slides and I don't really like it. So I'm just going to show you one slide of the actual numbers so you can just take a picture of it, whatever, so it's easy. But I just want to talk to you about these pieces. So first thing is you want to ask for their budget. Do not be hesitant. If you're a speaker, you should be compensated in some way. You are coming and you're bringing value. So it is not an embarrassing thing. It's not something you should be shy about. It's like talking about your elbow. You don't need to worry about talking about the fee. And you just come from a place of confidence and assuming, obviously, they're going to compensate you. You come from that space of, oh yes, and on the speaker fee, blah, 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 blah. You just want to come to this place of confidence. And there's no, oh, I know that, but I'm just wondering. I did that so often and I wish I could just rewind and rub that out. So a great way to do this is, the ideal way, in my opinion, is you keep it in a third-party removal. So you have an assistant or you have on your website. If you go to my website, in fact, if you want, I can go there right now and I can just show you what it looks like. We have a form that they fill out, and it keeps it sort of impersonal, personal, so that when I just got a speaking request the other day by text, and this happens a lot. Let me just share screen. That somebody texts me and says, oh, hey, would you like to speak? And I used to do things by text, and then I learned that was not helpful because I would forget things and whatnot. So this is my speaking page. So I start off with the testimonial, and then boom, this pops up to take the life shift quiz, which we're going to end up shifting to the Disciple Thought Leader quiz. If I can get 2 seconds to breathe. And then I've got right here, book Connie. Then I've got my samples of my speaking that they can see. I've got upcoming events, and then I've got another testimonial. Then I've got my press package. I've got my long bio, my short bio. And then I've got pictures of me speaking, and then I've got photos. And this has saved my bacon because every single time people say, oh, can you send me your bio and headshot? And almost every single time it's late, it's last minute. Oh, we're doing the ads, we're doing the promotion. Can you send me your bio and headshot really quick? And it's beautiful. I just say, yeah, can you go to my ConnieSokol.com/speaking and choose the photo and the bio that you would like? It's boss. And it makes you look really credible. These are pictures that I took, 4 years ago, and I've just used them over and over and over. It's been the best. So that's just a quick thing on the speaking page, and you can go and look at it more in depth. I don't want to belabor this time because this is your time. Okay, this is if you want to book me, and then it takes them to this page. So want to chat, contact Connie, and I've got different things so that they can click on it. So if a podcast guest, they just click here and they know to do that, or schedule a discovery call. If it's contact for speaking, they can click this, and now this is the information that I'm asking for: name, email, phone, speaking location, the amount of time they want me to speak, the anticipated audience size. This is so important to get. Will this be recorded? Really important. I've had people record my presentations without my permission. And they're like, okay, yeah. And we've got that recorded. Sometimes I don't find out about it until later. And I'm like, hey, that's not okay. So you really do need to ask these questions. The topics they're looking for, and then speaking fee. And that's a great way to remove it from yourself so that it's just an impersonal, antiseptic, this is the way we roll. And then these are other questions. Will there be a signing table available? And then additional information. Then how did you hear about me, which is really important. So if you want to see that, you can just go on my website so you can check that out some more. Was that helpful to see that at all? You kind of get an idea of questions. Now, if you don't have something like that set up just yet, that's totally fine. And I have it forever. So I would just put those questions in an email. I would say, hey, thank you so much for the speaking request. This is our typical email that we send out, and you can just complete that. And once we receive it, then we put it into our speaking request protocol. which means then we'll look at it and we'll decide and look at my schedule. So again, have a system. When they contact you, have an email that you can send right back out that they can complete so you can get all the information. So you definitely want to ask their budget. Now, if it's like a text or it's a friend or whatever, and you don't want to be all formal, you can just say, oh, thank you so much for asking me to speak. You say something positive about their thing. This event looks great. This conference looks fantastic. It looks amazing. So say something positive and then say, I would love to look at this. And I would just need to know a few things. And then you could bullet point those questions that I just did. And then they could just answer those bullet points questions. Or you could make up a Google Doc and then include the Google Doc and say, if you could just complete this Google Doc or this survey, you could even put it in a survey, then just complete that and send it back to me. And the Google surveys, as you know, is so, so easy. So make sure you do that and make sure you get those key pieces of information: location, number of attendees, anticipated time that you're going to speak, and the audience type. Is it executive, or is it going to be like everyday people, or is it for startups or whatever? That helps you understand who you're speaking to. So that's a really important thing. And then if it's with your friend or whatever, and they're talking to you at a thing and you're like having a conversation and you're not going to go, well, I'll send you a thing and then you can tell me about it later. You're going to want to find out more information and like be able to make the connection. So if it goes deeper and they are asking you, state your fee, ask their budget, and then state your fee. So if you're talking and they're saying, oh yeah, we'd love to speak at a conference, you say, well, what's the number of attendees and what's the speaker budget? A great way to say that is, especially like in an email, is typically for this kind of conference. So sometimes I say for a smaller conference, like for Life After Divorce, I said, well, typically for a smaller conference, I charge between $1,500 and $3,000 or $5,000 to $10,000 or whatever it might be. But I'm happy to work with your conference budget. That's a really good line to add in. Something like, I know how conference budgets can go. I'm happy to work with your budget. Let's see what we can do. Something like that, that lets them know I'm not doing it for free unless I choose to do that, but we can work with your budget and that's fine. So I like that sentence where I'm like, typically I charge so they can feel the value of getting you, but then I can do. So for LDS PMA, she was like, what's your speaking fee? And I said, well, typically for this kind of event, I would charge $3,500 to $5,000 because it was online and it was a, kind of a small kickoff thing. And she said, okay, we do not have the budget for that, but we have this that we could pay you and we could offer you this. And that's when you know you're working with a good organization. They'll say, well, then I can offer you this. If they don't say that, then you say, well, I'd love to work with your budget. Do you also provide an opportunity for, and that's where you saw that list, a book signing table. And we've talked briefly about this before, a free recording of the presentation, because that's gold for you. If they are going to pay for all the setup for a recording, that would be the number one thing that I would ask for, is that. Because people will go online and they'll buy your books if they want, but that recording, that's saving you anywhere from like $700-800 to $1,500, depending on the quality of what it is. So that's a really great thing if you can get that.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
The recording thing. I follow this speaker girl on Instagram, and she actually puts that in all her contracts. She says, if it's going to be recorded, I require that I get a copy of the recording as part of my speaking deal. She requires it, and I love that.
I love that, if it's going to be recorded. A lot of times they don't record, so don't set your cap on it. But I love adding in that line.
Right, or photography. If there's photography, she requires that she gets copies of all the photography.
I love that. And that is actually a win-win, especially if people are putting on a conference and they're like, well, we're already recording this for our attendees. It's a win-win, because then they're like, well, great. Yeah, we can just give you the recording. We're already putting so much money into this as a starter conference or whatever that we don't have enough to pay for both. So that's definitely a win-win. I wouldn't look at that as a negative, in my opinion. And I also said before, remember I said, then you can also offer that with the book signing, or you can have a VIP meet and greet. Well, do you have a VIP meet and greet or anything like that at lunch? Anything like that, you want to make sure you can ask for any of those additional things, because you should be compensated for your time. So don't feel hesitant about that. Any questions or other comments on that?
I have a quick question. So the same speaker girl that I do follow, she says that she always has a contract that she has that people sign. Like when she's like, here's our agreements, including like copies of the recording, whatever. And then she has them sign it. What do you think about contracts?
I think contracts are good. I think it's always a good idea. I personally have not had to do them because I work with organizations that already have their contracts in place. And you'll find that a lot of times they'll already have a contract that they want you to sign. So if you don't have one, I wouldn't stress it, but that'd be a good thing. You know, let me talk to Lamira, and then we have a template of something like that in there. The other thing is the organizations will have that, but also you want to make sure that you have some written understanding of what you're going to be paid and how it's going to work out. So even if you don't have an official speaking contract, the email that you're sending back and forth serves as that kind of a contract, as an understanding. Would it hold up in court? Yeah, probably not, but you're not going to work with organizations that are not going to do that. If you're working with someone who it's their first time conference or things like that, then yes, you definitely want to have something in writing, I would imagine. But I've been speaking for over 25 years, and I'm careful about the people that I speak with and speak for. I just am. I just don't take anything that comes my way. I don't think I have to, even when I was starting out. Even when you're trying to get your speaking legs, start as you mean to go on. Work with the kind of people that are going to be interested in what you have, and I think those are going to be DTL kind of people, is my personal feeling. So if you don't have a contract right now, I think you're fine. I have not had any problems. In all the speaking assignments that I've done, no problems, even business ones, no problems, but they usually had a contract. And I work with mostly, heads up, you know, Latter-day Saint organizations, Education Week and BYU women's conferences and conferences and workshops. So I'm not stressed about that at all. But that is a great point, Ashley. And I think that's great. We should probably have a template of a speaking contract in there for situations that you're going to come up against.
I use a contract when I speak with districts all the time.
That's excellent, because you're working with I'm surprised that they don't have their own contract as a district.
Yeah,
Is
no,
it because
that I've seen they have a contract. Yeah, so I've done.
Yeah, I definitely would do that in that situation for sure. Holy cow, that surprises me. But yeah, that would be a really good idea. So we'll get a little a template put in there. That's a great idea. Like I said, I've not even needed to have it, but like I'm saying, the people that I've worked with, I mean, it's pretty obvious that that's not going to be an issue, but for sure, I'm just kind of surprised for the education system. But anyway, but then you are you're your own subcontractor, you're your own person coming in. So that makes sense. So that's a great question. Any other questions? And then I'm going to show you a fee schedule. Okay, I'm going to share screen. And I was talking with Cheryl, just so you know, that slideshow, current slide. Okay, just so you know, these fee schedules can change, and it depends on the conference, and it depends on the speaking event that you're doing and the special deal that you're working out and where you speak. Utah is typically much lower, very sad, but understandable and predictable. So just know the prices on this would probably be like the next scale up in other places that you would speak. Not always, and not necessarily. If it's a startup conference, if it's a nonprofit, it's a lot of different factors go into this. And if you're going to do the keynote, or if you're going to do a workshop, or if you're going to do a keynote and a class, or if you're just going to do 2 classes, or if you're going to do a class and repeat the class, these are all good things to ask. By the way, I should have made that point as well. Is if it's just the keynote, and you can always offer to say, if they're like, well, your speaking fee, we can't make your speaking fee, then it's nice to say, I'm happy to do the keynote and a class or a breakout session after. And that a lot of times will sweeten the deal, and they'll be like, wow, we're going to get more bang for the buck. And you're there, you're already having to get ready for the event and be there. Sometimes, and a lot of times, it's just as easy just to do a class. I like doing my breakout classes right after the keynote. People are excited, they love what you've done, and they want to come to something you've done, and it makes it more time effective, because then I can either just do it right then and skip out, or I do it and I'm done, and then I can network. Another good thing to do with classes is do one right before lunch and then do one right after lunch. So if you're not a keynote, be the last one that speaks before lunch, because if people are taking off, they're probably going to do it after lunch. But if you speak before lunch, then people are buzzing about your class while they're sitting and talking about lunch. That's a really good thing to do. And a lot of times, because people buzzed about it at lunch, they'll want to come to your class after lunch. Now, that's not a hard and fast, and you don't always have to do it that way, but that's just a thought. Also, if you're given the option of an opening keynote or an ending keynote, both of them have pros and cons. One thing that I love is opening. I love opening because most people will come for the opening. Sometimes, often, you'll get a 50-50 chance of people staying through the whole thing. And if they don't know you and you're the closing keynote, that may not be enough of a draw for them to stay the whole day. That's why it's nice if they do giveaways or things like that, because then people will stay for the giveaways because we're human beings and that's us. But that's something to consider. If you get a good keynote, it's great to do the closing keynote. There's lots of pros to that, lots of good things to that. But if you have the choice, me personally, I like doing an opening keynote, and then you're networking the rest of the day and people know you and they want to come up and talk to you, and it just makes it more beneficial, in my opinion. Okay, any comments or anything? Okay, let's go to the fee schedule. So no experience, small organizations, 150 to 500. Generally speaking, the sweet spot in that is probably going to be 350. In Utah, sad to say, a lot of times it's 150 or they won't pay you, which is just insane. So you really do need to stand your ground of having some kind of compensation. Now, that being said, if you're like, I need to pad my resume and need to have some speaking experiences, then that's the win for you. If it's a really good conference and it looks good on your resume and they aren't going to pay you, then that's your payment, is the credibility of that conference. And oftentimes you'll only have to do that conference once and you've got the credibility, and now it becomes a stepping stone to the next one. And that's what happened for me. I started at the small things and like a little marketing get together, and then it got to be more of a bigger little training thing, and then it got to be more of a like Chamber of Commerce, women's, Chamber of Commerce stuff, and then it got to be a bigger thing of I'm going to do like EFY, and then it got to be Education Week, and then it got to be speak for business, and they would have you come in and then do kind of a training thing. So it builds, and you want to build. You want to take that credibility and then use it to kind of leap to the next thing and say, well, I've done this, so now I can do this. And you don't have to do like a bunch of them. Don't feel like, unless you're like, I really need more practice. But again, everyone's personality is different. My personality is I'm gonna get better in the doing. And if I feel like, wow, I just did a little bit here and now I'm up leveling like significantly here, well, guess what happened? I up leveled. Right? I had to create an up-level keynote. I had to get my stuff together, and it up-leveled me, and instead of saying, well, I'm going to do 3 or 4 more of these, and then I'll be more up-leveled. There's benefits to both, but it's just your personality and how quickly you want to move forward. So experienced medium event, 1,500, 3,000, 5,000. Again, check their location, their type of audience, and also the number of attendees. If they've got 3,000 people coming to their conference, they've got $5,000 to $10,000 to pay a speaker, especially if you're a keynote, for sure. So just keep that in mind. If you're very experienced and it's a large event, then that's what you're going to want to be looking at. And again, these are Utah prices, so just keep that in mind. And then for people who are authors, social influencers, media personalities, 10 to 20, they can even get 30 and 40. And then celebrities are 50,000 to 6 and 7 figures. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what to anticipate, so that when you go into it, you can have kind of know this is what I should be anticipating. And if not, then I can decide if it's worth it for me. And I can decide if I want to suggest something else that would be of value, because you want them to respect you. You want them to see you as a speaker, which means you need to walk in there as I am a speaker and this is what I do. When it was LDS PMA, I'm wanting to help them. I know it's an organization and it's nonprofit and it's all those things, but I also want them to know this is the value that you're getting. That's why I said, typically I charge this much. So they were like, wow, we are super happy to have you. What can we do to make this worth your while, right? And then the last thing is the Speak for Leads. So like the Life After Divorce conference, it's a small conference. It was only 200 people. And it's not, that's not my ideal in the sense of I'd rather reach more people, 500, maybe to 1,000. But what was good about it? It was my market. It was Latter-day Saint women. They've gone through hard things and they're going to want to share a message. They need help moving forward. They're totally value-based and aligned. They've already met some of those parameters of the 5 things that I qualify people for. So I thought, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to just see if this is a fit. And from that conference, same thing. I said, this is my typical fee. And they're like, we wish we could pay you that, but this is what we can pay you. Totally knew that was coming because it's BYU conference. However, in my class, I had 100 and something people in my one class, and I repeated it before lunch and after lunch. And I had that one class, and I mean, those two classes, and same thing happened. The buzz at lunch, people came up to me in my afternoon class that I heard nothing about, take it with a grain of salt. I heard nothing but good about your class. I came to your class, blah, blah. I had people who were in my class before that came for a second time. It was crazy. So anyway, out of that, I got 5, 7 discovery calls and 3 women who signed up for the retreat. So was that a fit? Was it worth it? Absolutely. So speak for the leads, speak for the people that you are trying to reach. And that's totally worth it, even if you're not getting paid very much, because it will end up blessing you. Yeah.
Just the question I have, you're talking about, again, sorry, my voice.
No,
You're talking about keynotes and then you break out in classes. So are you just in the classes continuing on the discussion? Is it an open group discussion, or are you walking them through the keynote again, but just in a more personal way? Just wondering to clarification.
a lot of times the breakout is to build off of a point on the keynote or another point they want you to cover. So if you have to create a whole new talk for that second thing, I would not include it in your keynote fee. Because if you have to create a new one, when we had Amanda Dixon speaking for Weekend for Women, we asked her to do our keynote and then a breakout class. And she said, well, I'm going to need to be paid for the keynote and the breakout. Well, we knew at the time that we weren't going to be able to do both because it was a startup conference, right? We needed to pay her big bucks for the keynote. So we just said, well, you can just do the keynote. And it was pretty funny. It was good to watch her. I learned a lot from her because she was very persistent. She was like, oh, I could do such a great thing for you and for your women and stuff. And that was great. I love to see that she was really had no hesitation in offering her services and knew that she could do good things for our women. But it came down to the fact of, no, we could put somebody else in there and we didn't need to pay that money. And so it was fine. So we just had to be very firm with her and say, nope, we're good. But thank you so much for offering. And this is another little tip too. If you ever put on a workshop or a conference, which we're going to be doing for DTLC, when we're going to announce that today in DTLC. But it was interesting. The first thing, she walked in the door, and this is, well, oh shoot, dang, I used her name, dang it. But she first walked in and she was like, and I need my check. And before she had even spoken, she's like, I need my check. And I was like, huh. Now, I could see the reason why she would do that is because there are times, I'm sure, where maybe she hasn't been paid or there's been a concern for that or whatever. And that goes back to Ashley in the contract. That's not been my experience. So that's not the way I operate. That's not how I work with people. Even if someone had taken advantage of me, that's just not the way that I work. But it was really good for me to see from the beginning, how do I want to do this? And I was like, I will not ask for a check until services are rendered. And then they will be ecstatic to pay me and then say, when can we have you back? Because unfortunately, the way that she chose to go about it at that time for her reasons that made sense to her and probably worked for her, for us, it didn't resonate with the way that we do things. And so it wasn't something that we were like, we want to invite her back. So that's something to consider. Opposite experience, we had Doug Brinley who spoke. He ended up, he's older, so he ended up going off on a tangent and on his topic. And so people had come up to us afterwards and said, I thought I was going to get this out of the class, and we only got like this out of the class. And apparently it had kind of come back to him. So he came up to, afterwards, I emailed him and said, hey, thank you so much. And we're sending your check or whatever. Oh no, we gave his check and we said, thank you. You should have received your check, blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, I'm not receiving it. He said, there was concerns about what I did and I didn't get through what I was supposed to get through. So I'm not accepting payment. Which, do you think we want to invite him back? Sure. I mean, because he owned that he should have covered his material that he promised he would do, but he was gracious enough to say, you know what, I didn't deliver, so I don't get paid. To me, that's a good integrative speaker. That's someone that I want to be and I want to have back. So anyway, on the keynote and the breakout, it should dovetail with your breakout. So if I'm doing a breakout on purpose-filled life, I'm probably going to do the breakout and work them through the purpose statement. Now, is that a benefit to me? Absolutely. Because if we take the time to work through that purpose statement, now it's discussion, it's chatting, it's connecting with each other. And they finish that purpose statement. What's their next thing they're going to want to do? They want to fulfill it, want to move on it. And who are they going to think of? It's going to be me. I'm going to say, I can help you with this if you want to move forward. Come do a discovery call, talk to me, and let's see if it's a fit. So does that make sense? Your breakout should be a pulling from that keynote and build on that and lead them to where you want them to go. Any questions on that? This is not, again, the 11th commandment. These are things that I've learned. These are things that I've learned from other people. These are things that I found out for myself. things are changing all the time and adding in and all the things. So just know this has been things that I know work and why they work, and those principles that kind of drive those. Anything that you guys want to add or share?
Connie, I'm so impressed with all your experience that you've had. And I'm sure you could share so many different stories of things that worked and things didn't work. But I love too what you said about up leveling. Like, don't be afraid. We get into this point, like just getting comfortable being beginner speakers, but don't be afraid to up level more and more. Like, I feel like recently, like Wendy did, and also Wendy Christensen, they're up leveling, and also Amanda, and then Ashley talking about being outside her comfort zone. And then, but at the same point, now she can share about that in keynotes. I think it's amazing that it just keeps pushing us to develop those skills more and more. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I love that. And remember, you are that speaker right now. You are that speaker. You just need the opportunity to let that come out and refine it, but you are that speaker. You belong at the table. If you've read, I don't agree with a lot of Sheryl Sandgren. She's CEO of Facebook, her book, Lean In, and a lot of people quote from it and things like that. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't agree with. But one of the examples she gives is she said she would go to meetings and the women would sit on the outer chairs of the meeting room, right? And she would go and sit right at the table and she'd be like, come sit up at the table. And they'd be like, and we do it to ourselves. I just interviewed Susan Easton Black for LESPMA podcast, and she was the first woman professor in the Department of Religion. I worked in the Department of Religion back in the college days, and I remember her coming into the office, and we just loved and adored her. But I said, what was it like breaking down those barriers? She said, yeah, it was a thing. She said, I remember my first meeting and someone asked me, are you here to take notes? And then someone else commented on her perfume, right? So ignore it, but be that speaker. You are that speaker already. And just a case in point, when I went to Dan Clark thing, he had this thing at the Little America. Anyway, it was kind of a smaller, tight-knit thing. And I was still kind of feeling like, okay, I mean, I'd done a lot of things and things like that, but I wasn't doing as much big speaking as I wanted to. I had still kids and things like that. And anyway, long story short, it's so embarrassing, but it's hilarious because he's speaking and he was so like the stories and the larger than life. If you've ever heard Dan speak, he's got larger than life stories. You're just like, okay. And then he met Gandhi, and I mean, it's like crazy. And I'm watching him, and I know as a speaker, he's had to rehearse a lot of this stuff, and I'm just watching him, and he keeps looking at me. And then afterwards, I go to get a drink at the water cooler, and he follows me out, and he starts talking to me, and I just turned to him and I said, I'm sorry, I just have a question. Are you for real? Like, is this authentic you? And he was taken aback. I can't believe he said those words. And he started laughing. And he's like, yes, this is the real me. And I said, okay, then I'm all in with you, because I said, I just needed to know, because sometimes people aren't. Well, guess what? It bonded us for life. He was talking to another high profile speaker in the hallway, and I could hear him use my name. And I walked up and he was like, yeah, this is what she said to me. Well, we're pals now. So guess who I get a call from? I'm back from cleaning the temple, and I look at my voicemail and it's Dan Clark. And I'm like, what? So I listened to it Saturday morning, and I'm driving to the temple to do an ordinance, and I'm listening to it, and it's Wendy Jones is on there, and weird of weirds, they ended up meeting each other because Joy Jones is the backyard, and their backyard's Dan Clark, they adjoin, whatever. Anyway, so they all end up meeting each other. So he's like, call me. So I call him. You guys, I'm talking to Dan Clark, driving to the temple, talking about, he's like, yeah, we need to do something. I want to do this fundraiser for Wendy. And hey, I'd love to come speak to your women if you want me to. And he wants to be on the podcast, LDSPMA, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you are that speaker, right? You see yourself as there's a place at the table for you, and you make yourself a place at the table, not rudely, not annoyingly, but you're there and you belong there. You have a message that's of value to share, so share it and be confident, because you know what? We're all winging it. We're all seventh graders in the lunchroom, nervous and insecure and looking for someone to sit with our tray. We're all the same. So, and it doesn't matter if you've been speaking for like 40, 50 years, it's all the same. So I love that you brought that up. See yourself doing it, and you will have those experiences. You will make those connections. I did the same thing with Ty Bennett. I walked out to him the first time, and I swear I overwhelmed him completely. The first time I met him, we were talking, I was like, I need and want to be in a speaker agency. Do you have any suggestions? First, I told him how awesome he was, because he was. But I'm like, all energy right there in front of him. And he's like, wow, you are a very dynamic woman, which is code for you're completely overwhelming me. But now Ty and I are good friends. So just be annoying and overwhelming, and then people will get to know you. They'll love you. It'd be great. Anyway. Okay, any other questions? And I just wanted to quick touch on adjusting for TV, radio, and podcast. And we can just go over it really fast, but we could also do it next time if you want. Anybody have a preference? Do you want to chat about anything or any questions? Any thoughts and feelings right now about what you're feeling? Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I have just a comment. I had read something the other day that has stuck with me, and I absolutely loved it. And it was that when you partner with God and when you're doing his work, he has already put your name on what you're asking for. Like, he's already put our name on speaking events. We just have to be patient and wait for his timeline, because it's going to align, and we need to wait for his audience so we can deliver his message to the hearts that are prepared. And I just loved the idea of, we don't have to like run around and be like, oh, I have to secure this and I have to secure this, because he's already put our name on it. So I just loved that.
Amen and amen. I think early on, I just felt like I'm such a 3 that I'm like, give me this mountain, right? Like, what do I need to do? And how can I do it? And how can I do it faster, better, whatever? And he really had to slow me down. He had to say, I need you to be more intentional about what you're doing. I can use what you're doing, but it's not going to be as fulfilling. And he let me learn that. And it was such a good learning thing that it isn't the quantity, it is the quality of the experiences. I didn't have to go and do 6,000 speaking experiences for people to take me seriously. In fact, I was shocked at how quickly people saw me as a speaker and saw me as more of a professional speaker than I saw myself. So just know, if you walk that talk and you put your time into your keynote and you deliver, you engage, that's what matters. And the Lord will plunk you where you go. And he's going to teach you along the way in the doing how to be a better speaker. And he's going to show you your weakness so that you can strengthen that. He's going to make you agile. I think I mentioned to you, I can't remember if I told you, but I remember different Education Week things. One time I forgot my talk, and I had to have a friend of mine who was in the Department of Religion that I had worked with years ago. And I'm like, can I send this to you? This is before like we all had cell phones and everything like that. I'm like, can I send this to you? Another friend of mine, can you email this to blah, 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 or whatever. I can't remember how I figured it out, but I got a copy to her. She got a copy to me. And then I literally walked in. I literally grabbed the talk and then walked in with my talk. And that was back when I had my talks. Another time I couldn't find a parking place. And I literally walked in as they were announcing me. The person did not even know if I was there or not. They just announced me from the pulpit, a la President Monson in the temple, announcing some guy's going to speak. And I literally walked in, didn't even have my purse with me, walked in, set that down, walked up to the podium and just started speaking. Boom, like nothing happened. You deliver. You don't make apologies. You don't whatever. You just get up and you just go. You just go. And that's how you work. One time I had to go speak somewhere, and I literally being on the floor, I was so sick. And I was saying a prayer. I was like, Heavenly Father, I don't know if I can even go tonight. And I literally, the last possible one before leaving, I got up, got dressed, went, and I spoke. And he gave me the energy and strength to do it. And I came home and I crashed. That's speaking. You just do the do. You just got to go and do it. And he will teach you to be flexible and put you where you need to be. And he's got opportunities prepared for you. And you can go back to those core qualifiers for you of what makes a good speaking experience for you. What's a fit? Because the adversary is also going to put a lot of bling in front of you. And this is something I really caution you on. He's going to make you think you've got to have certain things to be that speaker, or this is going to be a great speaking assignment. But then what actually turns out is not what you think, that Jason Hewlett speaking in the goat pen, right? I mean, you really do need to feel confident in asking the questions and learning from the experiences, because some of them are the short Elder Holland road where you go halfway down, you're like, this is not where I want to go. Expos, oh my gosh. I remember speaking at expos, and I think I told you, like, it was the worst experience. Everyone's over there shopping, it's loud and echoey, and I'm standing on the stage, there's no one there, no one there. They had me scheduled all the time because they just need to fill the slot. They just need to fill the slot. So you're standing up there like a beal, and there's no one in the audience. I went down and asked 2 women that were eating over here if they would mind just coming sitting in front and I could speak to them. It was the most humiliating experience of my life. But I learned from that. When they called me, Rebecca Cressman even would call or suggest or whatever, because she had a job to do and she had to fill the spots and stuff like that. And then I got wise and I realized, oh, they're just filling a spot. This really isn't a fit for me. That's why you guys are learning this stuff really early. That's going to help you be able to avoid those things. Now there's other ones. Sometimes Pinners Conference several years ago when they were just starting, it wasn't always that good of a fit. We went with in the living room. That was a podcast I did with a group of women, and we went there together. And that's what made it really fun, is we went there together and things like that. But it really wasn't a good fit. Now Pinners Conference can be a good fit. Depends on which one you go to and the setup. But ask your questions. What's the usual audience attendance in the classes? What times are the best times to speak? Just speak up. For a long time when I did Education Week, I just took what they gave me. And then after several years, I'm embarrassed to say, I realized I could request, or like I could say, no, I can't speak during those times. I just wanted to make sure I could speak. So then I got to where I was like, no, I need to speak at 10 o'clock because then my kids are off to school and I can come up and be prepared. And then I can't speak past 1 o'clock or whatever, or 12. And they gave it to me. So these are just good things that you learn as you go. And these are good things for me to pass on to you because they're things I didn't think to do. But learn from the learning. I remember sitting in a radio show interview at the old Osmond Studios. And it was, can't remember the radio show that was interviewing me. And we got done. And he said, have you thought about doing radio? And I was like, well, yeah, but not right now. I had little ones. I even brought my little one with me in the car seat. I can't remember which child it was because they all meshed together. And he said, how would you like to do your own radio show? I mean, just offered me my own radio show right there. And I paused and I said, that would be amazing. Wow, one-time energy, my own radio show, perfect. And I said, let me think about that. So I went and I prayed and I was like, at the time I had littles and they're getting fevers and things like that. And I can't show up and all of that. So I had to be realistic. And I said, no. Then fast forward several years in the future, when KSL calls and says, hey, do you want to do your own radio show? I knew it was the thing to do, even though I really didn't want to do it because I was pregnant. I was like, I'm going to have a baby. Why would I want to do a radio show? And that's when I I asked for and said, I can do this schedule and I can only do that. And they said, okay, we'll work with that. You can do it. And it worked out to be very doable. And we ended up having a really successful show. And then 6 months later, the Lord said, it's time to go. And I was like, okay. Oh, can't work with me, can't work without me. Anyway, any other thoughts? I'm loving these experiences. Anyway.
I like to say, I think he up levels you very quickly. Like just when you get comfortable, he up levels you. He doesn't even let you get comfortable. He up levels you.
You're so sweet. Okay, I have to agree with that. And sometimes I get really frustrated by it. Like, can I just get a breath? But I don't know. I don't know why he does that with me, but I'm really grateful that he does because I feel like I can turn around and share it faster with other people. And that is my delight, is like helping others go, hey, I learned from this, or here's some things that might help you and see if you can try it.
I have a comment.
Yeah,
I like the idea of believing that you're already that speaker. Like you don't have to go out there and get all these speaking gigs to prove that you're that speaker. You already are. So I just like that confidence piece of advice.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's so true. And when you feel that and you think that, you act that and you dress that. And that's something I may have mentioned before, but always dress like you're that speaker. I think I mentioned when I went to Storymakers the first 2 years, maybe I think first year or 2 years. Anyway, I always dress like a step above. And people would keep stopping me and asking me for things about Storymakers. They thought that I was on the board because I was dressed like that. They're like, do you know when this is happening? Or do you know about the awards thing? And I'm like, I'm just a participant, right? Well, guess what happened? That third year, I was invited to speak. So I acted like a speaker. I acted like I belonged. I went up and I talked to Lisa Mangum and I talked to Josie Kilpack, and very respectfully and kindly and carefully, so I wasn't taking their time, but I made myself sit at the table. And again, if you don't mind, I mean, we can talk about this other stuff the next time, because this is stuff on adjusting to a podcast and stuff like that. It's just tips. I'd rather that we are connecting. But you can tell me if I told you the story about being at NSA conference at the table with Chad Hymas and Dan Clark and all those guys. Did I tell you about that experience? If I did, I don't want to repeat it.
Was it the time that you talked about how you have 7 kids and stuff, and they're all like tooting their horns, or was that a different?
Oh, this was a different one. It was, and just stop me if I tell, please don't be polite, because I hate that. I hate repeating as I'm getting older and I have more places that I'm speaking to people. I forget what I've said. I feel like, oh no, it's happening to me. Just stop me. But they had 2 years ago, they had the Influence watch party at Chad Hymas's ranch, which is now burned down, which is just unbelievable. But beautiful, beautiful ranch. And I didn't want to go. And I was really nervous because I thought, oh, then people are going to get to know me personally. And what if I say something stupid? This was like a big concern. That's 2 years ago. And I was really concerned about it. But I ended up coming. They had one little room that was extra. And the president of NSA, Chris Barney, she was like, Connie, just come. And she let me come when everybody else was going to be there as far as on the board. Now, again, here's another thing. When she offered that, and I got it. I got the download. She saw me. I saw myself as like, oh my gosh, I'm out here and there's all the cool kids, right? They're all these global speakers and stuff like that. And I'm mostly an at-home mom who's doing this stuff, right? That's not how they saw me. She was like, Connie, you just come. They did not offer that to everyone because the board came in a day early. And she said, we have one single bed room if you want to just come for that. Well, I realized, okay, but I'm going to be hanging with the board. Anytime that you do a conference, if you don't pay for the conference ticket, ask if you can speak or you can do something or you can help with organizing something, whatever. Becky Kemp does this beautifully. She does a lot of that so that you're seen as part of the organization rather than I'm an attendee. You come in at that higher level. So then the people in the board see you like that. And then you just become one of kind of the people. When I was speaking at Storymakers, they have a green room. So now I'm in the green room with Lisa Mangum and Josie Kilpack and all the authors, and I'm just talking, hanging with them, going up and chatting. So now I'm in the club, right? So anyway, for NSA, I go the day before. I go ahead and do it because I'm like, wow, if they're giving me an opportunity to hang with the board, wow, I need to just pull up my big girl panties and just be the speaker, right? So I go there and then try not to say anything stupid. Anyway, so I go there and I'm hanging with them and it's wonderful. Well, the lunch the next day, they were going to do this marketing mastermind with Dan Clark, Chad Hymas, Ty Bennett, Jason Hewlett, all the biggies, right? Upstairs. And I knew that Cheryl Knowlton was going to be down with Chris Barney, not Cheryl Knowlton, but Chris Barney was going to be down doing the lunch, preparing the lunch because she did everything by herself. And I love her, even if she hears this and she knows it. We all tease her about, would you stop, just delegate, right? But she's right here. But I knew she'd be exhausted. So I'm like, so I went down to the kitchen and I'm helping her put on lunch. And I even say, is this a Martha and Mary moment? Like maybe we should be upstairs and maybe this could wait. She's like, no, if we don't get lunch on right now, it's not going to be ready. I'm like, okay. And it is with a heavy heart that I'm like chopping the vegetables. I'm like, meh. But anyway, here comes Cheryl Knowlton. And she's starting to do the taco meat. And she's like defrosting it on this little pan grill thing. And we're talking. And that's where she said, hey, how you doing? And I said, you know, you just spill your guts. And I'm like, I'm missing a link. I don't know what it is. And that's where she said, have you thought about contacting Michelle? And I went, oh, and I got the shimmer because I had met Michelle at an Influence conference and I loved her. And I had heard her speak and I was like, oh, she's awesome, but it wasn't the right time. So I knew whatever she's selling, I want and I need. The retreats was the missing piece. But the funny thing is that after that, because I had helped to make the lunch, they actually didn't end up doing a mastermind. So it was like, no, let's just chill and let's just do this later or whatever. And they never did it. They came down and they were last to come in. So we were the last. So they were all sitting at this table over here and we had helped with lunch. So we came in and there was nowhere else to sit because everybody else had their spot. So I thought, well, I'll just go see if I can just get a spot at that table. Went and took a seat at the table, bookending before we end here. And a seat at the table. Bye, Levin. A seat at the table. So I sit at the table and here's all these big names talking at the table. And I'm shrinking by the second because I'm feeling like I don't belong here. And it's all men. I'm like, they're all having these hunting stories and all these, war wound stories. And I'm like, I have nothing to share. Well, then here comes Becky McIntosh's husband, Scott, who's the biggest teaser of all time. And the day before we'd been out shooting. No, maybe it was that morning. Anyway, we've been shooting. Oh, yeah. So this was the day after. Anyway, we've been shooting and I had a bruise the size of a huge baseball. Like it was just this big on my arm. And I had mentioned it to him and I was like, yeah, you can tell that I'm in the movie because I just got this huge bruise. And he was like, oh, wow, yeah. They're all like total experts. Anyway, so Scott walks up to the table and he's like, yeah, Connie does shotgun shooting. You ought to show him your wound. And I was like, no. And they all turn and look at me. They're like, what wound? I'm like, no. And Scott like, come on, just show it to him. And I'm like, no. And I got a dress. It was kind of like this. And I'm like, no. And he pressed it. And I went, a lady never shows. Anyway, we're laughing, we're bantering. It was the most hysterical thing. And finally I went, and I showed them and they laughed. We had the best time. I looked around and I went, I'm in the club. We ended up taking a picture, which I still have. And sweet Mark Eaton was in it before he passed. Anyway, and I've got my thing like this and you can see my bruise, right? And we're laughing. And ever since then, I'm in the club and I took a seat at the table. So you are that speaker. Take the seat at the table and share your message like the speaking boss that you are, because God's already got you. He's already got it in you. And you just need to be confident that he will, even in saying the words, you will become that speaker that you want to be. So anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I love you, ladies. We're over. And I'm always trying to get down to 10 and I'm so sorry. All right. I love you, love you, love you. Thank you so much. And we'll talk about the other stuff next time. The goal this week is any gaps, any loose ends that you need to wrap up. And then if you want, you can just contact me if you have any questions or need any specific help. Just join my 20-minute coaching calls and we'll get you all set.